the fading light of a chilly autumn afternoon, Mia stumbled along a narrow dirt path, weaving through the dense trees of the forgotten countryside. Her footsteps, uneven and slow, carried the weight of exhaustion and uncertainty, each breath visible in the crisp air. The forest seemed endless, a tangled maze of gnarled branches and fallen leaves. But somewhere beyond the thick underbrush lay a small, dilapidated cabin, a place she hoped might offer shelter, if only for a night. Mia's hands trembled slightly as she reached the clearing where the cabin stood, its weathered wooden walls leaning with age and neglect, the roof sagging under years of harsh seasons. The windows, dusty and cracked, reflected the gloomy sky above, offering little warmth. Yet, to Mia, this forgotten structure was a beacon of fragile hope amid the chaos of her unraveling life. She pressed her palm against the rough wood, feeling the chill seep through her thin jacket, and wondered if this place could truly be a refuge. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. Just weeks before, Mia had been a promising artist, her canvases vibrant with life and color, her days filled with the hum of creativity and the soft murmur of the city around her. But the world had shifted beneath her feet. The gallery where she worked as an assistant had suddenly closed its doors, victims of harsh budget cuts and an unforgiving economy. Without her job, money dried up faster than she could understand, and soon she found herself standing outside her tiny apartment, clutching a cardboard box of meager belongings. The lock changed behind her. Now, pregnant and alone, Mia had nowhere else to turn. The small town she had once passed through on weekend drives had become her last hope. The cabin, abandoned and forgotten, was a fragile shelter from the biting wind and the looming uncertainty of motherhood without a home. Pushing open the creaking door, Mia stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the dim light, filtering through the grimy windows, settling on broken furniture and scattered debris. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet, and the air smelled of damp wood and decay. Yet despite its desolation, the cabin held a quiet kind of promise, a chance to breathe, to regroup, to survive. She set her box down gently, careful not to disturb the fragile silence. As she moved through the small space, Mia's fingers brushed over a cracked wooden table, its surface worn smooth by time. The walls bore faded remnants of peeling wallpaper, curling at the edges like the pages of forgotten stories. A rickety stove sat in one corner, cold and unused, its blackened interior a stark contrast to the pale walls. She felt the weight of loneliness pressing down, but also a flicker of something else, determination. With trembling hands, Mia began to tidy the cabin, sweeping away leaves and dirt tracked in from outside, stacking old newspapers and broken glass into a corner. She found an old blanket folded beneath a threadbare chair and spread it on the floor, her makeshift bed for the night. The chill of the wooden floors seeped through, but she wrapped the blanket tightly around her growing belly, a small shield against the cold. Her eyes caught on a loose floorboard near the far corner, its edges worn and uneven. Kneeling down, she carefully pried it up with her fingers, revealing a narrow gap beneath the cabin's floor. The darkness below was almost complete, a hidden void beneath the familiar. Heart pounding, Mia reached into the space, her fingertips brushing against something solid and cold. A sudden rush of curiosity mingled with caution. What secrets could this forgotten cabin hold? She pulled back the floorboard, revealing a small, dust-covered wooden door, its surface marred by scratches and age. The metal latch was rusted but intact, holding the door firmly closed. Mia's breath caught in her throat. This hidden door, concealed beneath the floor, was a mystery begging to be unraveled. Yet, the weight of her situation held her back. Was this discovery a sign of hope, or another unknown to fear? For a moment, she sat back on her heels, the silence of the cabin enveloping her. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint cry of distant birds settling in for the night. Mia's thoughts swirled, a mixture of fear and fragile hope. She was alone, pregnant and without a home. But here she was, sheltering in the quiet decay of this old cabin, faced with a secret hidden beneath the very floor she sat on. Her fingers traced the outline of the door again, the rough wood cool beneath her skin. Somehow, this place felt connected to her, a fragment of a story waiting to be discovered. Mia's mind drifted to the life growing inside her, the future she desperately wanted to protect. This cabin, broken and forgotten, had become the unlikely guardian of her fragile hope. Outside, dusk deepened into early night, an inky blackness spreading across the sky. Mia lit a small candle she found on a dusty shelf, its flickering flame casting gentle shadows on the peeling walls. The warmth was meager but comforting, a small defiance against the cold loneliness. She wrapped the blanket tighter around her and settled down on the floor, her back against the wall, the hidden door just inches from where she rested. As the candle flickered, Mia allowed herself to breathe, to feel the quiet around her. The cabin was more than just shelter. It was a pause, a breath between the storms of her life. Tomorrow, she would find the courage to explore the mystery beneath the floorboards. But for now, she let the silence hold her. The soft crackle of the candle flame, a fragile lullaby in the dark. Her thoughts drifted to the future. How she would care for the child she carried. How she would build a life from the shards of loss. The cabin, with its cracked walls and hidden secrets, was the first step in that journey. Mia closed her eyes, the candlelight flickering against the shadows, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a moment of peace. The road ahead was uncertain and steep, but here, in this forgotten place, she had found a fragile refuge. The night deepened, the wind outside growing louder, rattling the loose shutters and whispering through the trees. Mia remained awake, alert to every sound. The hidden door beneath the floorboard, a silent enigma in the dim candlelight. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, but as dawn approached, she felt the faintest glimmer of hope stirring within her. A hope born not just from shelter, but from the possibility of discovery, and the promise that even the most forgotten places could hold new beginnings. 2 weeks earlier, the rhythm of Mia's life was entirely different. The sun filtered through the tall windows of the downtown gallery where she worked, illuminating vibrant canvases that lined the walls. Mia moved among the paintings with practiced ease, adjusting a frame here, chatting with a visitor there. The gallery was her world, a place where she felt alive, inspired, and hopeful. But that morning, the air was thick with tension, an unspoken unease that settled like a cloud over the usually bright space. She had just finished organizing a new shipment of artwork when her manager, a stern woman named Lydia, called her into the back office. The door clicked shut behind Mia, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Lydia's eyes were tired, her voice low and measured. "Mia, I'm sorry, but the gallery's finances have taken a hit. We're implementing cuts to stay afloat. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Mia's heart sank. The job she had poured her passion into, the steady income that paid her rent and kept her afloat, it was slipping away in a matter of minutes. She nodded numbly, trying to hold back the swell of panic rising in her chest. The termination letter that followed was succinct and cold, a stark contrast to the hopes she had held just days before. Outside the gallery, the city continued its busy hum, indifferent to the upheaval in Mia's life. She walked the crowded sidewalks, clutching the letter, her mind racing yet numb. The walls of her small apartment suddenly felt too thin, the space too empty. How would she manage? The pregnancy, the bills, the looming threat of homelessness, each pressed down like an invisible weight. Within days, the eviction notice arrived. The landlord's curt letter left no room for negotiation. Without a steady income, Mia's savings dwindled faster than she anticipated. The apartment she had called home for the past year was slipping out of reach. Packing her few belongings felt surreal. Clothes folded carefully, art supplies wrapped in tissue paper, a small box of photographs. Each item a fragment of her life, now being boxed up and carried away. Her only close friend, Jenna, was a lifeline amid the chaos. Their friendship stretched back to college, and Jenna had always been a steady presence. She offered what help she could, an extra blanket, a warm meal, an encouraging word. But her own circumstances were tight. She worked long hours at the local diner, her pay barely enough to cover rent and bills. They sat together one evening in Jenna's cramped apartment, the air thick with shared worry. "I wish I could do more, Mia," Jenna whispered, her eyes full of concern. "But I'm stretched thin myself. Just promise me you'll be careful." Mia forced a small smile, grateful yet painfully aware of her own limits. She didn't want to burden Jenna, but the truth was stark. There was nowhere else to go. The city's shelters were overcrowded, and the thought of navigating them while pregnant filled her with dread. One cold morning, with her bags packed and her heart heavy, Mia left the apartment for the last time. The door clicked shut behind her, a final punctuation to a chapter she wasn't ready to close. She caught a bus heading out of the city, her destination uncertain but driven by desperation. The countryside was a world apart, quiet, vast, and unforgiving in its solitude. Mia wandered along back roads and wooded paths, searching for any sign of shelter or kindness. It was during one such walk that she stumbled upon the cabin, its lonely silhouette framed by skeletal trees against a gray sky. The moment she saw it, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Here was a place untouched by the turmoil of the city, a fragment of stability in a life unraveling. She approached cautiously, noting the cracked windows and peeling paint, but also the sturdy frame that suggested it might still stand against the elements. Inside, the cabin was cold and dusty, but it held a quiet comfort. Mia set down her bags and began to make the space her own, sweeping away leaves and dirt, lighting a small fire in the old stove with twigs gathered nearby. She moved deliberately, each action a small act of reclaiming control. At night, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, Mia allowed herself to feel the full weight of her situation. The loneliness pressed in, but beneath it, a stubborn thread of hope remained. She thought of her unborn child and the future she wanted to build, no matter how uncertain the path. As the days passed, Mia explored the cabin more thoroughly. She discovered an old, worn book lying on a shelf, its pages yellowed and brittle. Inside were faded photographs of a woman and a child, smiling despite the passage of time. The cabin seemed to hold more stories than its walls revealed, whispers of lives lived and memories preserved. One afternoon, While cleaning near the corner of the main room, Mia's fingers caught on a loose floorboard. Kneeling down, she pried it up, revealing a hidden door beneath the floor. The metal latch was rusted but still functional. Her heart raced at the discovery. What secrets lay beyond? But the weight of her immediate challenges held her back. There were bills to consider, shelter to find, and a growing belly demanding care and attention. The mysteries of the cabin would have to wait. For now, survival was the only priority. Still, the hidden door lingered in her thoughts, a puzzle piece in a life that had suddenly become fragmented. Each night, as she lay awake listening to the wind whisper through the cracks in the cabin walls, she wondered what lay beneath the floorboards. Was it a secret worth risking everything for? Or just an old relic of a forgotten past? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but so did the resolve to keep moving forward. Mia knew the road ahead would be difficult, a winding path through fear and hardship. Yet, in that quiet cabin far from the city's chaos, she found a flicker of strength, a fragile hope that somehow she would find a way to build a life for herself and the child she carried. In the dim light of the cabin, Mia wrapped her arms around her belly and whispered promises she barely believed herself. She would survive. She would protect this new life. And when the time was right, she would unlock the secrets hidden beneath the floorboards, uncovering the stories buried within this forgotten place. For now, though, she would rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new possibilities. And beneath the quiet surface of the cabin, the hidden door waited, a silent invitation to a future yet unknown. Exhaustion clung to Mia as she wandered deeper into the woods surrounding the old farmstead, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the thinning canopy of trees. Her feet ached, her hands trembled from carrying the few belongings she'd salvaged, and the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her chest. The city, with its harsh edges and relentless pace, felt like a distant memory, a life she had left behind in search of something more forgiving to a woman with a child on the way and nowhere to call home. It was then, through a gap in the trees, that she spotted the cabin. Its crooked silhouette stood quietly against the backdrop of the fading sky, framed by skeletal branches and a scattering of fallen leaves. The structure seemed almost swallowed by the forest, as if nature itself was slowly reclaiming it. But to Mia, it was a beacon, a fragile promise of shelter, no matter how worn and forgotten. She approached cautiously, stepping over moss-covered stones and tangled roots. The cabin's wooden walls, streaked with years of weather and neglect, bore the scars of time. Peeling paint, broken shutters hanging askew, and a door that sagged slightly on its hinges. Yet, despite its decay, the cabin held an undeniable presence, a quiet dignity that whispered of stories long past. Inside, the air was thick, with dust and the scent of damp wood. Sunlight struggled through grimy windows, casting a muted glow over the sparse interior. Broken furniture, remnants of a life once lived, lay scattered. A cracked chair, a rickety table, an overturned stool. The floorboards creaked beneath Mia's tentative steps, each groan echoing in the stillness. She set down her bags and took a deep breath, letting the silence settle around her like a fragile shield. The cabin was cold and empty, but it was also a refuge from the biting wind and the endless uncertainty of the past weeks. She began to move through the space, brushing away leaves and debris, stacking broken glass and discarded papers into corners. Her hands, though weary, found purpose in the small acts of care. Near the far wall, Mia's fingers caught on a loose floorboard, its edges worn and uneven. Kneeling down, she pried it up carefully, revealing a narrow gap beneath the cabin's floor. The darkness was almost complete, a hidden void beneath the familiar. Her heart quickened with a mix of fear and curiosity. What secrets lay hidden below? The gap revealed a small wooden door, its surface scarred and weathered, with a rusted metal latch holding it shut. Mia's breath caught as she traced the outline with her fingertips, the rough wood cool against her skin. The door felt like a threshold to another world, a fragment of the past waiting to be discovered. Despite the urge to open it, she hesitated. The weight of her situation, the pregnancy, the loneliness, the precariousness of her shelter, held her back. There were more immediate needs: finding water, securing food, making this cabin livable. The mystery beneath the floorboards would have to wait. She rose slowly, her back aching from the kneeling position, and turned her attention to the rest of the cabin. A small stove sat in one corner, cold and unused, its blackened interior a reminder of winters past. Mia gathered dry twigs and leaves from outside, placing them inside in hopes of coaxing a fire to life. After several attempts, a small flame flickered, casting warm shadows that danced along the cracked walls. With the fire crackling softly, Mia found an old blanket tucked beneath a dusty chair. It was threadbare and stained, but offered a semblance of comfort. She spread it on the floor, her makeshift bed for the night, and settled down, the warmth from the stove easing the chill in her bones. As she rested, her eyes drifted to the scattered remnants of life around her. A faded photograph pinned to the wall showed a woman smiling beside a child, their faces bright despite the passing years. An empty glass jar sat on the windowsill, its surface etched with faint fingerprints. The cabin was a vessel of memories. Fragments of lives lived quietly within its walls. Mia felt a kinship with those absent souls, their stories intertwined with her own in this moment of vulnerability. The cabin, though forgotten by the world, had become her sanctuary, a place where she could gather strength and face the uncertain days ahead. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, rustling dry leaves and carrying the scent of earth and wood smoke. The forest seemed alive with secrets, and beneath the floorboards, the hidden door waited silently, a mystery wrapped in dust and shadow. As night settled in, Mia wrapped the blanket tighter around her, the fire's glow flickering softly against the darkness. She allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection, the first in many restless weeks. The cabin was more than shelter. It was a pause, a breath between the storms of her life. Tomorrow, she would return to the hidden door, drawn by the promise of discovery. But for now, she listened to the rhythm of the night, the crackle of fire, the rustle of leaves, the slow, steady beat of her own heart, and found, in the quiet decay, a fragile hope that whispered of new beginnings. Morning light filtered weakly through the grimy attic window, casting pale rays onto the dust-covered floorboards, where Mia sat cross-legged, her fingers tracing the rough wood. The cabin was quiet, the stillness broken only by the occasional creak of settling timber and the distant call of a lone bird waking to the day. As she explored the attic's cluttered corners, her eyes caught sight of a small, rusty key hanging from a crooked nail embedded in the wall, a forgotten relic left behind by time itself. Mia's breath caught, the key's presence stirring a flicker of hope deep within her. She rose slowly, the pregnancy weighing heavily on her movements, and took the key down, its cold metal cool against her skin. The shape was old-fashioned, the kind of key she'd seen in stories, ornate but simple. A perfect match for the hidden door beneath the floorboards she had discovered days before. With the key clutched tightly in her hand, Mia descended the narrow staircase to the cabin's main room. Her heart pounded as she approached the loose floorboard, now carefully lifted to reveal the small wooden door beneath. The latch was corroded but still intact, its rusted metal seeming to resist time itself. She inserted the key, the metal clicking softly as the lock gave way. Slowly, she lifted the door open, releasing a faint musty scent that spoke of years sealed away. Beneath lay a narrow staircase descending into darkness, the air cool and still, untouched for decades. Mia swallowed hard, a mixture of fear and excitement swirling within her. She reached for her phone to use its flashlight, illuminating the steps ahead. Steeling herself, she began the cautious descent, each creak of the wooden stairs echoing in the confined space. At the bottom, she found herself in a small, hidden room, its walls lined with shelves and old trunks, covered in layers of dust but remarkably preserved. The air was thick with history, as if the room itself held its breath, waiting to share its secrets. Mia's fingers trembled as she brushed aside cobwebs and opened the nearest trunk. Inside were carefully wrapped bundles of fabric, brittle paper documents, and a leather-bound journal, its cover worn but intact. She lifted the journal reverently, sensing its importance. Flipping through, she began to read the faded, looping handwriting of a woman named Clara, who had once called this cabin home. Clara's words painted a vivid picture of hardship and resilience. She wrote of escaping a troubled past, seeking refuge in this very cabin, and finding strength in solitude. The journal spoke of nights spent by the fire, of dreams deferred but never forgotten, and of a fierce determination to protect the sanctuary she had made. Each page revealed more of Clara's story, her hopes, fears, and the quiet battles she fought in the shadows of this forgotten place. Mia felt a deep kinship with Clara, their lives intertwined across time by shared struggles and hopes. The journal was more than a record. It was a lifeline, a testament to the strength that had sustained another woman through hardship. As she read, the cabin transformed in her mind, from a crumbling shelter to a beacon of resilience and courage. Among the scattered papers, Mia found cryptic notes hinting at hidden supplies and secret compartments within the cabin, clues Clara had left behind to safeguard her refuge. The discovery ignited a spark of purpose within Mia. The cabin was not just a shelter for her. It had once been a sanctuary for a woman fighting against the odds, much like herself. With renewed determination, Mia began to explore the hidden room more thoroughly. She uncovered faded photographs, letters tied with ribbon, and a small box containing dried herbs and worn trinkets. Each artifact deepened her connection to Clara, weaving a tapestry of lives linked by hope and survival. As the hours passed, the weight of Mia's own fears began to lift, replaced by a quiet strength drawn from the past. The cabin, with its hidden room and Clara's journal, became a symbol of endurance, a place where broken stories could find healing. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and earth through the open windows. The day stretched on, filled with the promise of discovery and the whisper of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Mia closed the journal gently, clutching it to her chest, and looked around the hidden room with fresh eyes. This place, forgotten by the world, was now a sanctuary not just for Clara's memory, but for Mia's future as well. The key, the door, and the journal had opened a path forward, a bridge between past and present, despair and hope. With the sun dipping low outside, casting long shadows across the cabin floor, Mia felt the first true glimmer of something she hadn't dared to hope for in a long time. The possibility of new beginnings, born from the stories hidden beneath the floorboards. The morning sun had barely breached the horizon when Mia stepped out of the cabin, the crisp air filling her lungs with a mix of pine and earth that seemed to promise something new. Clutching Clara's journal tightly against her chest, she set out toward the small town she had glimpsed on her map, hoping to find answers and perhaps a flicker of support beyond the woods. The winding road led her past fields of golden grass swaying gently in the breeze, the quiet hum of rural life contrasting sharply with the turmoil that churned inside her. After what felt like hours, she reached the town's modest center. A cluster of weather-worn storefronts, a diner with chipped paint, and a handful of locals moving about their morning routines. She paused outside a small cafe. Its windows steamed from the warmth inside. Taking a breath, she pushed open the door, the bell above jingling softly. The rich aroma of coffee and fresh bread greeted her, momentarily easing the knot of uncertainty in her chest. At the counter stood a man with kind eyes and a welcoming smile. "Morning," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "You look like you've come a long way. Can I help you?" "I'm Mia," she replied, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "I'm staying in the old cabin outside town." She hesitated, then added, "I'm trying to figure out what I can do about staying there legally." She pulled the journal from her bag, hoping it might lend weight to her plea. The man nodded thoughtfully. "Name's Sam. I'm familiar with that place. Not many folks live out there anymore." He took a seat at a nearby table, gesturing for her to join him. The cabin's been a point of contention for years. It's owned by a distant relative of the woman who lived there last. Clara, I believe. They want it back. Mia's stomach tightened. She hadn't expected such a direct challenge so soon. "Is there anything I can do? I don't have much, but I want to stay." Sam sighed, his gaze steady. "Legally, it's complicated. You can't just squat on private property without risk of eviction. But there are laws about abandoned properties. Adverse possession, they call it. If you can prove you've lived there openly and continuously for a certain period, sometimes ownership can be claimed. But that usually takes years." Hope flickered faintly, tempered by the reality of her situation. "What about the history? Clara's story? Does that count for anything?" "Sometimes community support can help," Sam said. "If the town sees you as part of it, that can influence decisions. But you'll probably need legal help to make a strong case." Mia nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. "Do you know anyone who might help? A lawyer or someone who understands these things?" Sam smiled gently. "I do know a local lawyer who's helped folks with property issues before. I can get you in touch. But you'll need evidence. Proof that you're making the cabin your home, and that the previous owner's family isn't maintaining their claim." Relief washed over Mia. For the first time since arriving, she saw a path forward, however narrow and uncertain. "Thank you, Sam. I don't know how to repay you." "No need," he said, standing. "Just promise me you'll keep your head up. This town can be tough, but it also has good people." As Mia left the cafe, the weight of possibility settled on her shoulders. The cabin, once a forgotten relic, was now the center of a delicate balance between past claims and future hopes. She returned to the cabin with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to make the place livable and to gather whatever evidence she could to support her stay. Days turned into a rhythm of small victories. Fixing broken windows to keep out the chill, clearing debris from the yard, and tending to a small patch of earth where she planted seeds found in an old tin. Each act was a declaration, a silent claim to belonging. But with each improvement came the looming threat of legal action. Notices began arriving, terse letters from a firm representing the distant relative, warning Mia to vacate the property. The letters were cold and impersonal, a stark contrast to the warmth she found in Clara's journal and the quiet resilience it inspired. Yet, with Sam's guidance and the support of a few sympathetic locals who had grown curious about her story, Mia began compiling a record of her efforts. Photographs of repairs, receipts for supplies, and written accounts from neighbors who had seen her working tirelessly to restore the cabin. She also took to visiting the local library and town hall, sifting through public records to uncover any documentation on the property's history. Each discovery deepened her connection to Clara and the cabin, revealing a tapestry of lives intertwined with the land and its struggles. One afternoon, while poring over old maps and deeds, Mia found a faded document hinting at Clara's ownership, or at least her long-term occupancy, and a plea for the cabin to remain a refuge for those in need. The paper was fragile, its edges torn, but the words resonated deeply. Clutching the document, Mia felt a swell of determination. This was more than just a fight for shelter. It was a battle to honor the legacy of a woman who had carved out a sanctuary against the odds. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the town, Mia stood outside the cabin, the weight of the day's discoveries settling around her. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with legal challenges and the looming presence of those who sought to claim the land. But she was not alone. With Sam's quiet support and the growing curiosity of the community, Mia found strength in connection, a fragile network of hope woven through the fabric of this small town. The cabin, once abandoned and forgotten, was awakening, not just as a shelter for Mia and her unborn child, but as a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of home. Nestled in the quiet corner of the cabin's main room, Mia sat cross-legged on the worn wooden floor, the soft glow of a single lantern casting flickering shadows across the peeling wallpaper and scattered papers. Clara's journal lay open in her lap, its fragile pages revealing more of a life that felt achingly familiar. A story of hardship, resilience, and quiet rebellion that resonated deeply within Mia's own heart. Each entry was a window into Clara's world, a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow and hope. She wrote of days spent hiding from a past marked by pain, of nights warmed by the flicker of a small fire, and the steadfast belief that sanctuary was possible, even in the loneliest of places. Clara's words spoke not only of survival, but of purpose, a determination to protect the cabin as a refuge for women escaping hardship, a beacon in a dark world. Mia's fingers traced the faded ink, feeling a kinship that transcended time. The struggles Clara faced mirrored her own, the fear of the unknown, the weight of responsibility, and the desperate hope for safety. It was as if Clara's spirit lingered in the very walls of the cabin, guiding Mia through the shadows. Encouraged by the journal, Mia began to explore the cabin with renewed purpose, searching for the hidden compartments and secret stashes Clara had hinted at. Behind a loose panel near the fireplace, she discovered a small cavity containing dried herbs, carefully wrapped bundles of cloth, and a collection of letters tied with a faded ribbon. The letters, penned in Clara's elegant script, told stories of kindness extended to strangers, warnings of danger, and pleas for the cabin to remain a sanctuary. Among the bundles, Mia found a worn map, its edges tattered but its markings clear, a guide to hidden spaces within the cabin and the surrounding woods. The map suggested concealed caches of supplies, evidence of Clara's foresight and her determination to protect those who might one day seek refuge here. The discovery deepened Mia's resolve. This cabin was not just a shelter. It was a legacy, a testament to the strength of women who had fought against the odds to carve out pockets of safety in a world that often offered none. Clara's story was a beacon, illuminating a path forward through Mia's own darkness. As she pieced together the fragments of Clara's life, Mia felt the weight of history settle around her, a mantle she was both unprepared for and determined to bear. The cabin's faded walls whispered secrets of courage and endurance, urging her to carry forward the legacy of sanctuary and hope. Yet, the journal also hinted at darker truths, whispers of betrayal and loss, of forces beyond the cabin's borders threatening to claim what Clara had fought to protect. The Blackwood family, powerful and relentless, loomed in the margins of the story, their shadows stretching over the land and its people. Mia's heart clenched at the mention of the Blackwoods, sensing the danger that still lingered like a storm on the horizon. But Clara's words were clear. The cabin must endure, a refuge for those who dared to dream of safety and belonging. With the map and letters as her guide, Mia ventured into the surrounding woods, following Clara's marked paths to hidden caches stocked with preserved food, tools, and blankets. Each find was a lifeline, a gift from the past to bolster Mia's fragile hold on the present. Returning to the cabin, she organized the supplies carefully, feeling the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on her shoulders. The discovery of Clara's preparations was both a comfort and a call to action, a reminder that the fight for sanctuary was ongoing, and Mia was now a part of it. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees outside and the cabin settled into silence, Mia sat by the fire, Clara's journal open before her. She traced the words with care, drawing strength from the woman who had come before. In the quiet glow of the lantern, the past and present intertwined, weaving a story of resilience that transcended time. Mia felt a burgeoning hope, a fragile flame flickering against the darkness, fueled by the legacy of a woman who had dared to protect a sanctuary, and the promise that she too could carry that hope forward. The morning air was heavy with tension as Mia unfolded a crisp envelope that had arrived just hours earlier, its contents stark and unyielding. A formal eviction notice from the distant relative who claimed ownership of the cabin. The letter demanded she vacate the property within 30 days, the words cold and final, leaving no room for negotiation. A knot tightened in Mia's chest, the weight of uncertainty pressing down harder than ever before. Days earlier, she had met with Sam and a local legal aid group, sharing the evidence she had painstakingly gathered. Photographs of repairs to the cabin, receipts for supplies, letters from neighbors who had witnessed her efforts to restore the home. They listened intently, their expressions a mixture of empathy and cautious optimism. The legal advocate, a woman named Elaine, had assured Mia that while the road ahead would be difficult, the evidence might be enough to buy time and perhaps even challenge the ownership claim. But the eviction notice was a stark reminder of the opposition she faced. Mia knew the distant relative was prepared to fight, wielding resources and influence to reclaim what they believed was theirs. The cabin, her fragile sanctuary, had become a battleground. Determined not to succumb to despair, Mia returned to the cabin that afternoon, her mind racing with plans. The hidden door beneath the floorboards called to her, a gateway not only to Clara's past, but potentially to the proof she needed. She knelt down, carefully lifting the door once more, the rusty hinges groaning in protest. The narrow staircase descended into the dimly lit room where Clara's letters and belongings had been carefully preserved. Mia's hands trembled as she sifted through the papers, searching for anything that might strengthen her case. Then, tucked beneath a bundle of letters, she found what she hadn't dared hope for: a collection of correspondence between Clara and a local land registry office dated decades earlier. The letters detailed Clara's ownership claims, requests for property recognition, and a plea to maintain the cabin as a sanctuary for women in need. One letter, in particular, stood out. A heartfelt appeal to protect the cabin from outside interests, signed in Clara's unmistakable handwriting. It was more than evidence. It was a testament to Clara's determination and the rightful claims she had fought to establish. With renewed hope, Mia reached out to Elaine, sharing the newly discovered letters. The legal aid group began assembling the documents, preparing a case that challenged the eviction and questioned the legitimacy of the distant relative's claim. The letters from Clara bolstered their argument, suggesting a continuous, if complicated, history of ownership and stewardship. Meanwhile, tensions in the town began to rise. Rumors of the legal battle spread, drawing the attention of neighbors and local officials. Some expressed sympathy for Mia's plight, recalling stories of Clara's kindness and the cabin's role as a refuge. Others remained cautious, wary of becoming entangled in a property dispute. Amid the growing storm, Mia found unexpected allies. Neighbors who had once regarded her with curiosity now offered support, delivering meals, helping with repairs, and sharing their own memories of Clara and the cabin's significance. Their voices added weight to the community's recognition of Mia's connection to the land. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, Mia sat by the fire, reading through Clara's letters once more. Among them was a poignant note addressed to future occupants, a plea to protect the cabin as a sanctuary, to honor the legacy of refuge and resilience it represented. The words resonated deeply, strengthening Mia's resolve. But the distant relative's pressure did not wane. Notices escalated, legal threats became more pointed, and the looming eviction date approached like a shadow over every moment. Mia felt the strain, the constant uncertainty threatening to erode her spirit. Yet, each time doubt crept in, she returned to Clara's story, the woman who had faced darkness and refused to yield. The cabin was more than wood and nails. It was a symbol of hope, a beacon for those who dared to dream of safety and belonging. With the legal hearing scheduled, Mia prepared herself for the confrontation ahead. She gathered the evidence, the letters, the testimonials, and the support of the community, ready to stand for the cabin and the future it represented. As the days slipped by, the cabin transformed from a quiet refuge into a rallying point, a place where history and hope converged, and where Mia would fight not only for a home, but for the legacy of sanctuary that had been entrusted to her care. The courtroom was quiet but charged with anticipation as Mia sat at the small wooden table. Clara's leather-bound journal and the stack of letters laid before her like shields against the weight of the moment. The room, filled with townspeople, legal representatives, and the distant relatives' council, felt both foreign and familiar. A battleground where the past and present converged in a fight for the cabin's future. Mia's heart pounded as the hearing began. The judge's stern gaze swept the room before settling on the evidence presented. Elaine, the lawyer from the local legal aid group, spoke with measured confidence, weaving together the story of Clara's long-term occupancy, the documented ownership claims, and Mia's ongoing efforts to restore and protect the cabin. Clara's letters, read aloud with reverence, painted a vivid picture of a woman who had sought refuge here, fought to claim the land, and pledged the cabin as a sanctuary for those in need. The community members who had come forward testified to Mia's dedication, how she had breathed new life into the forgotten home, cared for the land, and embraced the legacy Clara had left behind. Opposing counsel argued fiercely, presenting deeds and documents that favored the distant relative's claim, emphasizing legal technicalities and the formal ownership records. Yet, beneath the sharp words and pointed objections, there was a palpable unease. a recognition that the cabin's story was more than mere property lines and contracts. As the hearing stretched into the afternoon, Mia felt the weight of the moment settle deeper within her. She glanced at the faces in the gallery, neighbors who had brought food, friends who had offered encouragement, and strangers whose eyes held quiet hope. Their presence was a testament to the power of community and the importance of the cabin as more than just a structure. When the judge finally spoke, his voice was deliberate and measured. He acknowledged the complexity of the case, the conflicting claims, the historical ambiguities, and the emotional stakes. While a full resolution would require further investigation and legal proceedings, he granted Mia temporary protection to remain in the cabin, allowing her time to gather more evidence and prepare for the next phase of the battle. Relief washed over Mia in waves, mingling with exhaustion and the lingering fear of what lay ahead. The victory was fragile, but vital, a reprieve that breathed life into her hopes and the promise of a future rooted in the cabin's walls. In the days that followed, the community support grew stronger. Neighbors who had once been wary now brought supplies and shared stories of Clara's kindness and the cabin's history. Local artisans offered their skills to help with repairs, and a small group organized to help Mia prepare for the coming winter, their actions weaving a network of care around her and the cabin. Yet, the distant relatives' claim had not disappeared. Legal letters continued to arrive, veiled threats lurking beneath formal language. But Mia stood firm, bolstered by the evidence, the community, and the legacy she had inherited. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the cabin's worn floorboards, Mia sat by the fire, Clara's journal open on her lap. The flickering flames danced in her eyes as she read a final entry, a hopeful note encouraging future occupants to carry the spirit of sanctuary forward, to protect the cabin as a place of refuge and resilience. Mia closed the journal gently, the weight of those words settling within her. The cabin was no longer just a shelter from the elements. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol of justice, and a home forged from the courage of those who had come before. As night wrapped its quiet embrace around the forest, Mia felt a profound connection to the past and a renewed determination for the future. The battle was far from over, but in this moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the strength of community, she knew she was not alone. The cabin stood resilient, a sanctuary reclaimed, a legacy honored, and a home waiting to nurture new stories yet to be told. The soft light of dawn filtered through the cabin's windows, casting a gentle glow over the worn wooden floorboards and the small garden patch where tender shoots of green had begun to break through the earth. Mia moved quietly, careful not to disturb the peacefulness of the morning as she prepared for the day ahead. The cabin, once a symbol of uncertainty and loss, had transformed into a home, a sanctuary filled with hope and the promise of new beginnings. The past months had been a whirlwind of challenges and triumphs. The legal battles, the community support, and the countless hours spent restoring the cabin had woven a tapestry of resilience and determination. Mia's pregnancy had progressed steadily, and each day brought the comforting rhythm of preparation and growth. The cabin's walls now echoed with laughter, the soft footsteps of visitors, and the warmth of shared meals. Inspired by Clara's journal and the legacy of sanctuary it embodied, Mia had taken a bold step. She decided to open the cabin's doors to other pregnant women facing homelessness, a refuge where they could find safety, support, and a sense of belonging. The idea blossomed slowly but surely, nurtured by the community's goodwill and the stories of strength that had carried Mia this far. Today, the cabin buzzed with quiet activity. Soft murmurs filled the air as women gathered around a makeshift table, sharing stories, hopes, and the unspoken bond forged by shared experiences. Mia moved among them with gentle care, offering comfort and encouragement, her own journey intertwined with theirs. Her friendship with Sam had deepened into a steady companionship, a grounding presence in the midst of uncertainty. He arrived early that morning, carrying fresh bread and coffee, his easy smile a balm to Mia's tired spirit. Together, they prepared for the day's visitors, their shared purpose strengthening the foundation of the burgeoning shelter. In a small corner, a young woman cradled her belly, her eyes bright with cautious optimism. Mia knelt beside her, offering a reassuring touch and words of encouragement. The cabin, once a lonely refuge, had become a cradle of hope for many, a place where fears could be faced and futures imagined. Amid the bustle, Mia found a quiet moment near the fireplace, where a small wooden box rested. Inside lay letters, photographs, and mementos collected over the months, a living archive of the cabin's journey from isolation to community. She opened Clara's journal once more, finding a final note tucked between the pages. "Carry hope forward." The words echoed in Mia's heart, a call to continue the legacy of resilience and sanctuary. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength that came from connection and purpose. The cabin was no longer just a shelter. It was a beacon, a testament to the power of compassion and the courage to rebuild. As the afternoon sun warmed the cabin's walls, Mia stepped outside, breathing deeply the scent of pine and earth. Around her, the small garden flourished, each new sprout a symbol of growth and renewal. The community had rallied, neighbors offering seeds, tools, and friendship, transforming the once-forgotten cabin into a vibrant home. Sam joined her on the porch, his presence steady and reassuring. They watched as children played nearby, their laughter weaving through the trees like a promise of better days. Mia's hand rested gently on her belly, a quiet smile touching her lips. The journey had been long and fraught with uncertainty. But here, in this place reclaimed by hope and hard work, Mia felt a profound sense of peace. The cabin's story was still unfolding, shaped by the lives it touched and the dreams it nurtured. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the landscape, Mia whispered a promise to the future, to carry hope forward, to protect the sanctuary, and to honor the legacy of those who had come before. The cabin stood ready, no longer just a refuge from the past, but a home for new beginnings, a place where stories of resilience and love would continue to grow, sheltered beneath its weathered roof and the watchful eyes of the forest beyond. A year had passed since Mia first stepped into the cabin, a fragile refuge nestled at the edge of the forgotten woods. The seasons had turned, painting the landscape in vibrant hues of green, gold, and white, each change marking a new chapter in the cabin's evolving story. Now restored and transformed, the cabin stood proud, a small but welcoming sanctuary that breathed life into both the land and the community it served. Inside, the walls were painted softly in warm tones, adorned with photographs and artwork created by the women and children who had found shelter here. The hearth crackled with a steady fire, filling the space with warmth and the subtle scent of pine. The air hummed with quiet laughter and the gentle murmur of shared stories, a stark contrast to the silence that once cloaked the cabin in its early days. Mia moved through the rooms with a calm confidence, her steps light but purposeful. Her child, a bright-eyed toddler with curious hands and a ready smile, played nearby, exploring the space that had become a true home. The cabin had grown beyond a mere shelter. It was now a place of belonging, a beacon of hope for those who arrived carrying their own burdens and dreams. The shelter had helped several women through difficult times, offering not just a roof, but a community bound by understanding and support. Mia's vision, inspired by Clara's legacy, had blossomed into something tangible, a network of care that extended beyond the cabin's walls into the town and surrounding woods. Outside, a small memorial grove had been planted in Eleanor's honor, a nod to the women who had come before, whose stories had inspired the fight for justice and sanctuary. The trees stood as silent witnesses, their branches reaching skyward in quiet tribute. Community gatherings had become a regular rhythm, neighbors bringing food, sharing skills, and weaving connections that strengthened the fragile threads of hope. The cabin's story had become intertwined with the town's own, a testament to resilience and the power of collective healing. One crisp morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows and danced across the wooden floors, Mia sat quietly on the porch, watching her child chase leaves swirling in the breeze. The weight of the journey settled softly upon her, a path marked by loss, discovery, struggle, and ultimately, renewal. Her thoughts drifted to the hidden door beneath the floorboards, to Clara's journal and the letters that had unveiled a legacy of strength and sanctuary. The cabin was more than a structure. It was a vessel of memory and hope, a place where stories of hardship had been transformed into narratives of courage. Mia reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn key, the same one that had unlocked the hidden door so long ago. She turned it over in her hand, a symbol of the journey she and the cabin had taken together. The community had come to see the cabin as a symbol of healing, a place where past wounds could begin to mend. Mia's child, surrounded by love and safety, embodied the promise of new beginnings and the enduring power of home. As the seasons continued to turn, the cabin remained a steadfast sanctuary, its walls holding the echoes of laughter, tears, and dreams yet to be realized. Mia knew the road ahead would still hold challenges, but she faced it with a heart fortified by the legacy she carried and the family she had built. In the quiet moments, beneath the vast expanse of sky and the watchful gaze of ancient trees, she whispered a quiet gratitude for the hidden door that had opened a path, for the women who had come before, and for the enduring spirit of hope that now lived within the cabin's walls. The cabin, once a symbol of despair, now stood as a testament to resilience, healing, and the unbreakable bonds that turn a house into a home.